will be on time management, which is our theme today, but with a focus on volunteer and community service. So as you guys are all aware, on the 13th of March this year, we reported our first case of COVID-19. A few weeks later, we are now at over 3,500 cases. And this pandemic has really disrupted our lives in major ways. In fact, it's not only a public health crisis, but it's also an economic crisis of great magnitude. As you guys are all aware, schools are shut down, cessation of movements, restricted movements. Most of us are at home. We are now seeing new concepts like working from home, studying from home, schools online. All these things are new things which are not normal to us. And we are also now expected to wash our hands every few seconds, every few minutes, and also sanitize as regularly as possible. All these are new changes, behavioral changes actually. So our lives have been disrupted and things are not normal the way we used to know it. This crisis, in my view, it's quite unprecedented. Nobody expected it. It just happened, boom, from nowhere. And its impact is quite devastating. But related to what we are discussing today, I think it has affected us in terms of time management. Because before we used to have 24 hours in a day, and your 24 hours was quite structured. You wake up at 5 or 5:30, you pray Fajr prayer, and then prepare yourself either to go to work or school or some other tasks. But now you have 24 hours, no going to school, or the school is in your living room, right? And if you are working, also most of us are working from home. So all these have really disrupted the way you used to know time and our plans. And I know Ms. Rehema will talk more about how to manage our time during this pandemic, but I would just like to give you very few tips, just 3 quick tips. One, since this has really caused changes in terms of how we manage our time and our routine has changed, I think it's good to have some sort of routine. Even if it's you're still at home, make sure you work, you wake up, if it's 7 every single day. You also need to have a pattern of sleep. I know most of people, their sleep pattern has changed, and this causes a lot of dynamics in terms of your life and also health-wise. So this is the second thing. So have a routine. Make sure you have a routine. If you don't have it in place, please do. Secondly, you also need to manage distractions. Since either you are studying from home, your siblings are there, your parents are also there, they expect you to also help with chores, especially for girls and ladies. So you need to have some boundaries and some expectations. For example, if your class is from 8 to 10, your parents should also be aware that your class is from 8 to 10, and then there is no distraction. But you must also allocate time for them, because after all, your first responsibility is to your parents. Rida al-walidain is very, very key. So that is second, you try to manage distractions. And then thirdly, you have to have goals, small goals which are achievable. You know, you say, for example, you finish chapter 1 of the book you are doing, or you know, if you are doing research, you try and just research some chapters or some journal papers. You know, such goals which are achievable, and you have to do it. So those are the tips I can give as I go along with my presentation. So during this COVID-19 times, many of us are at home, and we need to utilize our time well. Despite this disruption, we need to utilize our time well, because time is a resource. In my view, first of all, what we need to do is be closer to Allah, because during before this COVID-19 pandemic, you had a lot of things to do. So now at least you have some time, you know, so please be closer to Allah. Make sure you pray on time, make sure you read Quran, and make sure you reflect and make sure you do ibadah. So this is very important. Secondly, try to learn a skill. Try to learn a skill, because most of us now have more time than before. Thirdly, especially digital skills, right? Because now all of us are surviving digitally, and that's why we are having this forum digitally for the first time. So learn a skill, and a skill can vary. You know, digital skill, it can even be a cooking skill, culinary skill, whatever skill you can. Thirdly, read a book. Reading a book is very important. You know, it expands your knowledge. It also expands your mind. It's also good for you. It's also a motivation. So try to read a book. And as I said before, it's time for reflection. And then try to follow informative webinars. For example, this webinar we are doing today, we are also planning with Ali to do another session, skills program. So try to follow as many informative webinars as possible. But most importantly, please try to volunteer and give back. Try to volunteer your skills, your energy, and give back to the community. Let me now talk very briefly about Africa Education and Development Trust. AEDT is a non-profit organization, as Mr. Ali mentioned, and our goal is to empower communities through education financing. And that's our core business. But beyond education financing, we also are engaged or involved in mentorship and community service programs. This is very important for us, and this is very dear to us, because our end goal is to produce graduates who will utilize their knowledge and skills to give back to the community. So this is the end goal for us. And that's why we encourage our people, our beneficiaries, and everybody else to volunteer and give back to the community. This is a quote from one of our beneficiaries, and he said, AEDT made my dream of attaining university education a reality. Without this assistance, it was almost impossible. I'm now on the front line in giving back to my community, include during this COVID-19 pandemic. And we are very happy when we see such quotes or such testimonials from our beneficiaries, because then we know that our program is really working and that we are really achieving the expected results. This is a picture of Smart Volunteers Forum. This is a network of volunteers, and the officials are here. Mr. Abdul Nasir, the chairman of Smart Volunteers. I know he will talk more about it, but as I make presentation on volunteerism, I think a very good case study is Smart Volunteers. So this is the team. They were at Umma University. There was a function there. Whenever we have a function, they do the coordination, the organization, and also ensure that all the logistics are well and done. So this is what they do. And they also have some other activities. So for example, they visit children's home and they put a smile on so many of these orphans and children in those orphan homes. They also visit elderly homes. They also support, like I said, orphans and vulnerable children through various initiatives and projects. This is a very amazing and lovely initiative. And I think they are doing an amazing work, because these are students who are giving back to the community. Sometimes when you're a student, you just want to concentrate with your books. But for them, it's not just being about a student, but it's also being about an active community member, right? So this is why they're involved in this volunteer work. And I'm very proud of this Smart Volunteers Network. They always make me very happy when I see them in action. And I try to support them as much as I can. And also AEDT is quite delighted to be joining them in their various activities. So just recently in Ramadan, they did a very amazing initiative where they joined Make a Smile organization and some other partner organization. And Alhamdulillah, they fed 100 families. This is just one of their projects. They have several other projects. So this is what they did, mashallah. They supported 100 families during Ramadan. Now let me talk about Make a Smile organization. Because this is also another amazing case study of how volunteerism and community service is something which is key and integral role to our community development. So Make a Smile, again, we have officials here who will talk about Make a Smile probably in a bit of details, but just basically, this is a non-profit organization, and they are doing an amazing work. I'm sharing with you this story of Make a Smile organization because the leadership of this young organization is mostly students. They are students pursuing medicine, architecture, and they are balancing their studies. And they have, alhamdulillah, managed to build an incredible organization. And the strategy of this organization is basically volunteerism and community service. This is what drives them. They also do have young professionals who also are actively involved in their work and activities. So probably Mr. Abdul Nasir will talk to us a little bit about what they do, but I'm really amazed by the work this team is doing. So this is also an example of community service and volunteerism. And just to say, they really did plan and executed the iftar program very well. So how do you volunteer during this COVID-19 pandemic? This is a key question because we are told to stay at home. We are told to stay safe. We are told not to shake hands. We are told to have a safe distance, 1.5 meters or so. So how do you then volunteer in such different times? So I have a few tips for you guys. This is just a picture of beneficiaries and also volunteers in action, right? This is, I think, during their food distribution program. They have done an amazing job. So volunteerism, in my view, has never been this critical. Serving our communities has never been this important, particularly to help the needy and vulnerable members of our community, the elderly, the orphans, the widows, those people who are normally forgotten. These are the group of people who we are supposed to support and help in any way we can. So by volunteering, you are easing the burden of COVID-19 effects, especially on these vulnerable groups. By volunteering, you will be also restoring hope to these people. By volunteering, you will be utilizing your time well. But most importantly, if you volunteer, you will gain skills. Because I am sure if you ask Abdul Nasir and his team, I am sure they have learned a lot because of volunteering. Even when they executed this Ramadan program, I know they have learned a lot in terms of organization, in terms of planning, in terms of even setting goals, targets. I know they had several meetings and they communicated very well since the inception of the initiative. And when the initiative was closed, they also communicated to every single donor, right? So this is how you learn some skills which will be valuable to you, especially in this competitive job market. But most importantly, Allah will reward you abundantly. So charity begins at home. My view and my suggestion and my proposal to you guys will be to start volunteering by helping your immediate family members. You cannot go and start helping somebody in Mombasa if you are in Nairobi or Isiolo. You start with the neighboring, right? So you can start with your siblings, with your mom. All this is volunteering also. And then your neighbors, and then probably your town, your village, and so forth and so forth. You can, there are various ways of giving back and volunteering, but you can be involved in food drives. I know there's a lot of food drives initiatives going along. And then you can also probably help students with tuition. Most of our siblings are now learning online from home, or if it's not online, they are being given some assignments. So please, you can also volunteer by ensuring that you help them through their assignments and schoolwork and so forth. This is at family level. You can also sensitize community members on COVID-19 pandemic. Just the Ministry of Health guidelines, especially our elderly and those people at the village level may not understand why you should not shake hands and so forth, why you should sanitize. So all this is something you can do. You can do it. You don't need a lot of resources to do it. It's just information sharing. And that's why I said volunteer activities are many, but they are also varied. So in a nutshell, in my view, any act of kindness to put a smile on someone's face is volunteerism. That's basically what I believe volunteerism is. If you put a smile on somebody else's face, most of us are going through a lot, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. People have lost their jobs. People have been placed on unpaid leave. You know, some of them are actually facing a lot of strains in their social lives, in their economic lives, in their livelihoods have been disrupted. And if you just be kind to any person, I think this is the first step to ensuring that you become an active community member, but also a kind community member. So as you volunteer, you must also keep safe. So please, as you volunteer, you must keep safe. Try to protect yourself, follow the MOH guidelines. Again, I will give you an example of Make a Smile and Smart Volunteers. Whenever they did the initiatives during Ramadan and at the peak of this COVID-19 crisis, they always adhere to the MOH guidelines. So they made sure that they kept the physical distance and also they wore masks and so forth. So this is the way to do it. Whenever you volunteer, please ensure that you are safe, then you can volunteer. Individuals at high risk should avoid physical contact. For example, if you have underlying medical conditions, you can volunteer by being probably doing the planning bit just behind the scenes, or you can do your volunteerism work digitally. So that you avoid that physical contact. And if you must then do the physical contact, you ensure that you have your mask on and ensure that you practice the physical distancing. So you can call ahead whenever you want to go so that you don't just show up. You ensure that everything is in place. And then you avoid entering people's homes unless it's very necessary. Again, if you are distributing food for the vulnerable and poor, just ensure that all these tips have been put in place. And then, like I said, you must practice social distancing. And then please try to volunteer virtually. There are so many ways of doing it. You can be involved in online charity funds, online drives. You can share information online. Or you can give your ideas like what you are doing today in this session. This is also giving back virtually. So finally, we are in unprecedented times. It's a difficult period for all of us, but I strongly believe that we shall overcome, inshallah. So my final message to you guys will be kind to one another and give a helping hand. Stay safe. Shukran.